This is the beginning of an epic journey that spans 6 days, 7 states, 29 stores, and even 5 meetups with community members. This trip is a little bit different than anything else I've ever done before. And because of that fact, I am recording this video a little bit different than I've ever done before. This is actually going to be part 1 of 3. In part 1, we will cover days 1 and 2 of this trip. Like I said, it's a 6-day journey, so each part will cover 2 days, and we'll see what we can uncover. There's a ton of good stuff ahead, so I hope you'll stick with me. But during this video in particular, you'll want to stick around for day 2, where I find a store that, honestly, I thought I walked into Toys R Us back in 2014. The amount of stuff they had in there, the amount of new in-box stuff they had in there, just was unlike anything I've ever seen before at a used game store. So let's get on the road and get started. So we're back on another road trip. We have the minivan once again. Nice little upgrade from the Prius. And it's time to check out some shops. And if you've been with me for any amount of time, you know my first stop is Disc Replay here in Rockford, Illinois. Come here often. Pretty much any hunting trip I go on, it's almost always on my way. So we'll check it out, see what's new this week, this month, however long it's been since I've been here, and let you know what I find. At this stop, we got a little bit of everything. Picked up 3 figures, including a Dune Bug, Roller Brawl, and a Wind Up. There were also 2 games to go along with that. Got Spyro's Adventure on the Wii, and a copy of Giants for the 3DS. But I believe my best find at this location was a portal. It's a Skylanders Imaginators portal, but it's for the Xbox One. And if you can read that price tag on the back there, just $4. $4 for an Xbox One portal. On to store number 2. My favorite store as of late, Mega Replay here in Bloomington, Illinois. We'll see if it holds the title or if we're going to have to find a new favorite on this trip. But either way, should be a good time. Let's go see what they have in store. I need to find a new favorite store. Didn't have quite as much luck this time, though. Their figures were very picked over, and I had to settle for a few games. They still had plenty of Skylanders games on the shelf, so I made sure to take advantage of their buy 5, get the 6th free deal, and picked up 6 games. We got Trap Team for the PS3, as well as Superchargers for the PS3, 2 copies of Giants for the Wii, along with Spyro's Adventure for the 360 and Swap Force for the 360. On to store number 3, another very regular store in my route, Disc Replay in Champaign, Illinois. They've really changed up what they put in the case here. This case used to be completely full of Skylanders figures, but based on what I've seen at this store in recent trips, I understand why they would have taken the figures out of the case if they haven't gotten anything new in. I asked the employees here to see if they did have any figures because I didn't see them in the case where they usually were, and they did pull out a box from behind the counter. Now, in this box, I mostly just saw the very common starter pack figures, and that was kind of what was left in the case last time I was here. But I did find one interesting thing that I've never seen in a store before like this. They had a couple of trap trays. And as you may know, I've recently started selling these in the shop, so they caught my eye a little bit more even. And I asked them about them. They had 2 in the box, and I wanted to know, are these for sale? The employee I was talking with told me they were definitely for sale, but he had to look up how much they were. He did mention that their boss wanted to keep one around in case they got any traps in, so they had a place to display them, and which was fine. I totally get that. After searching around for a while, he couldn't find the trap tray listed in the system, so he just told me, take it. Just take it for free. I'm like, you sure? But yeah. So I can't guarantee that anyone, this store or any other store, will ever just give you trap trays for free. Do not quote me on that. But in this case, I lucked out and did get a free trap tray. It is a little bit beat up. There are a few creases here, but I always say if it still can serve its purpose, we'll sell it in the shop. So, like, the top of it still looks nice. It doesn't have the stickers on it. It still stands. You can still put traps in it. We'll sell this one in the shop. Made it to the next stop in Terre Haute, Indiana. Another disc replay location. I've been here before, but it's been a while. But last time I was here, so on top of picking up the figures I showed you, they tossed in the 2 bottom halves of the Jade Firecrackens for free, since they couldn't find the top halves, and so they figured they couldn't sell them. They were just going to throw them out otherwise. So we rescued 2 halves of the variant of the worst figure ever. The past 2 times I've been here, I think, they haven't really had anything. I haven't found games, I haven't found figures, and unfortunately, I think I'm going to have to add this location to the no Skylanders list. Like, disc replay in general is very, very good about Skylanders, but this location, for whatever reason, just doesn't seem to carry them anymore. Now, the reason for this trip is that on day 3 or 4, I am going to meet up with some community members and buy a huge collection. And so I knew this collection alone was more than I could fit in my personal car, so I needed to rent the minivan. But I don't think it's going to be enough to actually fill the minivan. So I wanted to make sure that I came home with as much as possible, and I decided to make some deals, or at least try to make some deals along the way. The night before I left on this trip, I decided to spend a little bit of time surfing on Facebook Marketplace. This is not an area I've dealt with in many years, honestly. I've kind of moved away from Facebook Marketplace just because people aren't always super responsive, and it can be hard to finalize a deal. And even if I do finalize a deal, like get them to meet me somewhere and or ship it to me or whatever the case may be, it's just been more of a hassle than I've been willing to deal with in recent years. But since I was out and about, I decided I'd give it another shot and see if I could find anybody that was willing to sell. I was able to get in contact with one seller who actually has a little eBay shop. I'll be sure to put their information up on the screen here for you if you want to check it out, because I definitely didn't buy everything they had, but I did put together a nice little bulk lot that I could pick up on my way through Indiana. In this lot, we found Magna Charge, 2 Firecracken, 3 Rattleshakes, 2 Night Shifts, 3 Hoot Loops, 1 Star Strike, 1 Blades, 2 Love Potion Pop Fizz, Legendary Slam Bam, and a Series 2 Hex, 3 Hot Dogs, 2 Light Core Prism Breaks. These were actually supposed to be Series 2 Prism Breaks, but he brought me the wrong ones. And I mean, we were already making the deal. It was getting late, and I just told him, like, this is fine. I'll still be able to sell these. He had already given me a good deal on the lot as a whole, so it wasn't too big of a deal, but not quite what I ordered. We also got 4 Thumpbacks, 3 Cinders, 3 Voodooed, 4 Zaps, 3 Chop Chop, 2 Boomers, 5 Bash, 7 Prism Break, and 8 Flash Wings. While I love shopping at game stores, they're never a guaranteed source of figures. So I wanted to make sure that I was able to pick up something on this trip. It's a little bit of something every day, even if I didn't find something at the game stores that I'm exploring. Now, this meetup was a little bit out of my way, and unfortunately meant that I didn't get to the last 2 stops that I had planned for the evening. I'll have to check my schedule again when I get to the hotel and see if I can fit in those 2 stops in the morning. Day 2. So I was able to stop by the 2 stores that were closed by the time I got to them the evening before. but this is one I've been to once before, I think, in Avon, Indiana, just on the west side of Indianapolis. So let's go see what it looks like today. This disc replay in Avon, Ohio has been very picked over by now. However, the gold chop chop that I've spotted in the case for many, many months now is still there. I've been tempted to ask multiple times and see if they might be able to make a deal on it, but I also don't know if the employees at that store, since it's just a chain store, if they have that ability to negotiate prices like that or not. Regardless, I was still able to find a bunch of games, 12 games to be exact. Once again, I wanted to make the most of their buy 5, get the 6th free, so I made sure to get a multiple of 6. I got 2 copies of Spyro's Adventure for the Wii, Giants for Wii U, as well as Superchargers for the Wii U, 2 copies of Giants on the 360, 2 copies of Swap Force on the 360, Trap Team for the 360, 2 copies of Spyro's Adventure for the 3DS, as well as 1 copy of Swap Force for the 3DS. And I will put this reminder out there that these games and figures that I buy are not for me. They're for you. I know there's a lot of you out there that don't have game stores and flea markets and places that sell Skylanders in your area. So I go on the road and look for Skylanders anywhere I can find them. If I can find them at good prices, I buy them up, put them in the shop, and make them available online so that folks like you can complete your collection. My next couple of stops are actually recommendations from community members. The day before, I had put out a note on YouTube, I believe, asking for recommendations for places along my route. Now, I wasn't able to hit all of the locations that were mentioned, but I did hit a good majority of them. You'll see some in today's video and some in future videos. On to the next stop. It is another recommendation from a viewer. So this is a place I've not been before, Gizmo's Galleria. I believe this is a flea market type of location as opposed to a straight up game store or something like that. So we may have to do a little more hunting inside, but we'll see if we can find anything. There were a lot of vendors in this store, so I tried my best to explore all of them. Generally, when I walk through places like this, video games and Skylanders kind of jump out at you because they're not maybe the most common thing to find here. I did definitely find a few vendors selling video games, and there were even 2 vendors that I found selling Skylanders. Now, I didn't actually end up buying any Skylanders here, but I did find 3 games. We got 1 copy of Giants for the 360 and 2 copies of Swap Force for the 360. Had a bit of a drive to our next location, but with another recommendation from the community, we are here at Dave's Video. So let's go in and see what we can find. The front of this building definitely looks promising, but we'll find out if they have Skylanders in stock today or not. The store itself was kind of dimly lit and smelled a little bit musty, but it was a nice enough store. The owner seemed nice. When I walked around the store, I wasn't able to find any Skylanders figures. I did see a few games, but I figured I'd ask just to make sure. Turns out they didn't currently have any Skylanders figures in, but they do say they get them in from time to time. But the Skylanders games they had were fairly priced, so I did pick up 4 games. We got a copy of Giants for the 360, Swap Force for the 360, Swap Force for the Wii U, and Superchargers for the Wii U. Ran into a few issues earlier today, so now begins my speed run of the exchange. It is currently 6:36, and I have 4 locations of the exchange that I want to hit before they close tonight at 9 p.m. Let's get going. This next stop was actually a recommendation as well in Sandusky, Ohio. Now, the recommendation was for the exchange. And if you've seen some of my previous road trip videos, particularly through Ohio, you know that I've been to the exchange before. Now, I haven't been to this particular location before, but I figured since I've had very good luck at the exchange previously at multiple locations, this one might be worth checking out as well, especially since it was recommended to me. As I've come to expect with the exchange, this store I mean, I just love the layout. I love the setup. And they did have a solid selection of Skylanders. Now, along with this selection, the exchange also tends to know what these figures are worth. And so it varies a little bit from location to location, which stores I can actually buy from and which figures I can actually buy. They don't necessarily have set prices across the chain. And so it's worth checking out different locations to see what might work for you. But this time I was only able to walk out the door with 4 figures. I picked up a Nightmare Express, Gusto, Tough Luck, and a Thorn Horn camo. You know it's a good trip when we find a camo. Here we are at exchange location number 2. It is now 7:26 and we gotta keep moving. Well, now I'm in the exchange territory, and so we better check out a few more locations. The rest of these locations I believe I've been to before in previous videos even, but knowing how much they have and the selection they have and how often they get in new product, they're definitely worth checking out. Here we actually picked up one game, Trap Team for the Xbox One, but we also did get some figures to go along with that. Got a Sheepwreck Island, Popthorn, Ghost Roaster, Rubble Rouser, Series 2 Drobot, Lava Lance Eruptor, Series 2 Bash, the best in-game variant ever, Quick Draw Rattleshake, an Eon's Elite Voodooed, and 2 Nightfalls. Made it to location number 3 of the exchange. It is now 8:08, so we are running out of time, but I think we might be able to get this done, as long as I don't talk too long right here. Let's go. The next exchange location I went to in North Olmsted, Ohio. Once again, great selection of figures, and they were all very fairly priced. I mean, I'm basically required to say that because the figures here looked like they were priced using the prices in my shop. Like basically figure for figure, dollar for dollar, they were priced to SCL pricing. And so, while that is very good for you, the collector, go to this store, you will get figures, they will be fairly priced. But that means that there's nothing for me to buy here because I would literally be losing money after I buy the figure, pay the tax, drive it home, list it and all that stuff. Like, there's no money to be made. So, unfortunately, I could not pick up anything from this particular location. But if anybody is in the area, this is a great store to go to. Now, I'm sitting here thinking this has been a pretty good trip so far. And I haven't even gotten to the main collection I'm picking up. But tonight gets even better. The end of day 2 is the best hunting in the wild experience I think I've ever had. Not only did I strike gold at the next exchange location, but I ended up making a deal in the parking lot afterwards. Running out of daylight, but it is 8:34 and I just pulled up to the final location of the evening, exchange location number 4. And it's still early enough that I don't feel bad about going in right before they close. So let's get in there and see what we can find. This is my receipt from the next location. Possibly the longest receipt I've ever had from a used game store. At this location, I picked up my boy Camo. It's going to be a really good trip. You know it. A Dark Light Crypt, Thumpback, and a Series 2 Hex, Stink Bomb, and a Doomstone, a Gusto, along with a Nightmare, Mirror of Mystery, and a Fizzy Frenzy Pop Fizz, 2 Wildfires, a Fire Scepter Trap, and a Dark Handstand Trap, Egg Bomber Airstrike, and a Starcast. But even with all this, this was not the best stuff there. The best stuff was new in box. This, like I said before, felt like I was walking into Toys R Us again. I have not seen a selection of new in box stuff like this in a store since 2017, basically. Got all 3 legendary traps in the box. We got a fire totem and a life snake trap with the box. Now, I noticed afterwards that these boxes were taped, which wasn't the best, but the boxes themselves are still in pretty good shape, and for the price they were asking, just $5 a piece, it was hard to say no. We got a Jade Flashwing, found a Nightmare, and you may have noticed all of these figures have these big price stickers on them. And I haven't tried to remove these yet. I'm going to try 1 or 2 of them and see if they come off cleanly. I'm thinking on these Trap Masters in particular, since it's on the plastic, it might come off nicely. Some of the other ones are stuck to the cardboard. So I'm not entirely sure if they'll come off cleanly or not. We might just leave them on there and let whoever purchases them decide if they want to remove them or not. There was a Rocky Roll, and then just before I left, I found another case of Skylanders around the corner. I don't think that they were necessarily trying to hide it, but it definitely had some very high dollar items in this case. First, we got the Light expansion pack, and you can maybe guess what the second one is. That's right. We got the Dark Element expansion pack. These I haven't seen intact in quite a while. I have had them before. We have sold them at auction, but it's been a long time. And this is the only place that you would find Midnight Museum, the Dark Spider Trap, as well as Sunscraper Spire and the Light Owl Trap. But this is also, if you can see it down in the bottom, where you would get the Light and Dark villain stickers. So the stickers were included in these elemental expansion packs because this was the pack, these 2 packs were how they announced the Light and Dark elements to the Skylands. So you can imagine how I was feeling after finding all that and more that I didn't buy in the store. Like, I just didn't think this trip could get any better. I had been posting about this trip and talking to different people about it and telling them that, yeah, I was going to be in Ohio. I had seen earlier in the day that someone tried to message me about selling some Skylanders. They knew I was in Ohio and they lived in Ohio, and so they wanted to try and meet up. At this point, I had no idea where they lived. But when I finally got in contact with them, I found out they were in Parma, Ohio. Now, I'm not an Ohio geography expert, but I was currently at the Exchange in Parma Heights, Ohio. So I had a pretty good feeling that Parma and Parma Heights would be pretty close to each other, and we might actually be able to meet up. They sent me a handful of pictures of items they'd be willing to sell. It was just part of their collection, not everything. And there were some interesting pieces, so I figured it would be worth at least meeting up. It was already about 9 o'clock, and I still had a 2-hour drive to my hotel that night. So I didn't want to stick around too long, but I'm actually very glad that I did. This lot that I got was a big hodgepodge of everything. And it did include a few busted up figures like this damaged Chop Chop, a damaged Power Blue Gold Rusher, and even a damaged Starcast. There were some starter pack figures like Food Fight and Snapshot, Cinder, Jet Vac, a Life Hammer Trap, and of course it's not a lot unless you get a Tree Rex. So don't worry, this is a real lot. We got a Sharkshooter Terrafin and the Shark Tank, got Hurricane Jet Vac and the Jetstream, we got Dark Spitfire and Dark Hotstreak. Continuing down that path, we have a Dark Slobbertooth, a Dark Sea Shadow, Dark Snapshot, and Dark Wildfire, and even a Dark Clown Cruiser. There's Sunburn and a Punch Pop Fizz. There's Rattleshake and Trap Shadow. There's a Lightcore Ruptor and a Series 2 Drill Sergeant. There's a Lightcore Star Strike and a Tidal Wave Gilgrunt. There's a Chaos Trophy, along with a Lobstar, Tough Luck, and Jade Firecracken. There's a Lightcore Jet Vac and a Series 2 Drobot. There's a Bop and a Mini Thumpling, Eye Small, and Gnarly Barkley. There's even an unopened Mini Genie Sidekick. That's right, with the orange base. There's a Grave Clobber and a Power Blue Trigger Happy. But the cream of the crop in this lot was the one and only Blackout. So, I mean, there were already a dozen or two pieces in that lot that were well worth it for me. As soon as I saw Blackout, I knew, like, yes, we're going to get this lot and find it a new home.